You live somewhere for 25 years. It's never flooded, so you don't expect your estate to suddenly be branded a flood zone. Residents blamed the Great Wall of Flemington, built to protect the famous racetrack. But at what cost?
It's a village. It's a real community.
We were sold a lie to a certain extent.
Blindsided families demanding answers.
I'm in my 80s. It's not something I want to be worried about.
The first reaction was it was a bit confronting seeing that map from Melbourne Water.
Richard Riley's lived here since 1999.
There are certainly insurance implications. There might be pricing implications for residential property going forward.
Richard's among around 900 homeowners in the Kensington Banks estate in Melbourne, suddenly branded at risk of flooding from a 1 in 100 year event.
By definition, that's a rare event.
I hate to say it, but I probably have to not insure.
That will be an absolute killer. I mean, they may not insure us. Then what do we do?
Melbourne Water made the controversial decision following a nearby flood in 2022 that inundated Maribyrnong, but not homes in the Kensington Banks estate.
It would have had to have come up another $1.30 because my neighbour and I measured to come up to our top steps.
Their estate was built 25 years ago to withstand floods. It's even won awards. Gabby's been here from the start.
This whole estate was raised several metres because it is built on a floodplain.
We were sold living in this estate based on it being flood-proof.
Caroline's a homeowner of 23 years. She says she read about the flood map changes in the paper.
We read that and went, it's pretty bad news. I expect the residents will have to get together and protest and get some action happening.
We knew it was a floodplain, but they had put mitigation practices in place so that the houses weren't going to be affected should there be a flood.
Melbourne Water recently held an online webinar to explain its decision.
Our climate's changed significantly. I know everybody on the call is well aware of that, and well aware of the fact that we are seeing a much more prevalence of those really intense rain events across Melbourne.
Some residents are already battling surging insurance following the 2022 floods. They say they'll be crippled if premiums soar further.
Last year my flood insurance was $15 onto the premium. This year it's been raised to $5,000. So this was after the flood.
We always knew that Great Wall of Flemington racetrack would create some issues.
And it did. This giant wall, built to protect the nearby home of the Melbourne Cup from floods, contributed to the 2022 disaster. A recent report finding it increased water levels near homes by up to 3 centimetres. Still, there are no plans to tear the wall down.
I'm a racing fan and I have been on the racecourse when it's been very wet. Not at the cost of residents who live here permanently.
It's hard not to have a lot of empathy for these people. They bought their houses, they bought what they thought were, good quality housing stock.
Domain property expert Alice Stoles.
If these residents do end up selling these homes, it's very hard to imagine how they could not have to take such a loss on what the value of the property is. We've seen experts have said it could, affect the value up to 20% of what the property price is.
Talk of a property buyback scheme's been met with mixed opinions.
We bought here because it was the best designed estate.
Buybacks are not something that Melbourne Water are considering at progressing as one of our options to mitigate the impact of flood.
What does it mean? Does it mean we're going to get a 3 centimetre river or flood coming up from Maribyrnong? Well, that's okay, that's fine, but is it going to be 1.5 metres coming up from the Maribyrnong? I would think their modelling that they've done would have those answers, and the residents and our neighbours would like to see those before we can make some considered judgments.
These residents might not be the only ones. Melbourne Water says it'll now look at updating 250 other flood models across the state, taking into account updated rainfall figures and climate change.
I think we need a much more independent assessment.
I reckon everyone should get together and do some class action.
Yeah, those poor families. And Melbourne Water says it will consult with homeowners before the flood zone changes are made. I'm not sure how much that helps them.